Black CEO humiliated by billionaire heiress. Hours later, she bought out her entire empire. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Do you even know who she is? The question cut through the velvet air of the Manhattan rooftop like broken glass. Champagne flutes froze midair, and the orchestra faltered for half a beat before recovering. All eyes turned toward the only black woman standing near the center of the gala, a woman in a minimalist white suit. No diamonds, no entourage, just calm power wrapped in quiet. Across from her stood Clarissa Vale, the billionaire heiress of the Vale dynasty, with a smirk polished by generations of entitlement. "I don't entertain imposters," she said, loud enough for the chandelier to hum with tension. The word imposter didn't echo, it bled. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Naomi. The moment Clarissa said it, Naomi Blackwell knew exactly what this was. Not confusion, not curiosity, but the familiar sting of disbelief disguised as etiquette. Clarissa's voice was coated in pity and poison. "Security will escort you out. This event is for real investors," she added, emphasizing real like it was a password Naomi didn't deserve to know. Naomi didn't flinch. Her hand rested lightly on the stem of her glass, the same way her grandmother used to hold a pen while signing contracts no one believed she could afford. The heiress mistook stillness for submission. That was her first mistake. Around them, guests pretended to be fascinated by the auction screen, but their eyes betrayed hunger for scandal. Clarissa turned slightly, letting her diamond necklace catch the light, each reflection screaming wealth, pedigree, and exclusion. "You people love pretending to belong," she whispered, smile razor thin. Naomi's voice came low, measured. "And you people love pretending it's not about color." The sentence didn't rise. It landed. A hush fell, heavy as marble. One server, a young man with cocoa skin, paused mid-step, eyes wide with something between fear and recognition. He'd seen this before too many times. Clarissa laughed, brittle, artificial. "Sweetheart, I've never cared about color. I care about credibility. And you walked into my family's charity gala without either." She gestured for the guard to move, the same way her father once gestured for stocks to be sold. The man hesitated. Naomi's gaze never left Clarissa's. Calm, direct, a mirror. "Then maybe you should have looked at the guest list before you tried to rewrite it," she said. A flicker of confusion crossed Clarissa's face, gone as quickly as it came. The camera flashes began to whisper. Naomi didn't move. Not yet. Not until every eye had turned. The city lights burned behind her like a trial by fire, and somewhere in the reflection of the skyline, she saw it, the pattern, repeating, century after century. Tonight would be the last time. Because Naomi Blackwell didn't come to attend this gala. She came to buy it. As the gala continued, Naomi remained in place, her glass still held lightly in her hand, the weight of Clarissa's words hanging in the air. She could feel the eyes of the crowd on her, the sharp gaze of the elite, who all knew one thing for sure. Naomi Blackwell did not belong here. Not in their world. Not in this circle of privilege, where everyone played by the rules they had written and rewritten for generations. But Naomi knew better than to fight on their terms. She wasn't here to plead. She wasn't here to beg. She was here to take back what belonged to her. Naomi's calmness was a sharp contrast to the venom that filled the space, the tension thickening like smoke. Clarissa's words were like nails in a coffin, but Naomi remained composed, letting the discomfort of the room settle. She wasn't moved by their stares, their judgments, or the implied challenge of her being in the wrong place. Naomi had lived with this her whole life, being underestimated, overlooked, and judged for things beyond her control. But now, Naomi was done letting it slide. She wasn't going to walk away from this, not this time. As Clarissa smirked, her false confidence barely containing her disdain, Naomi dialed a number into her phone, her fingers steady as she waited for her assistant, Carla, to pick up. "Carla," Naomi said quietly, her voice smooth but deliberate. "I need you to start Protocol 5. We've been underestimated again. I'm going to buy it." There was a slight pause on the line, but Naomi didn't wait for confirmation. She knew Carla was already preparing the necessary steps, the wheels of the Blackwell Empire turning in sync with Naomi's will. Naomi had built this. Her empire, her fortune, her knowledge of how these people operated, it all came down to this moment. The heiress had no idea that the very institution she took for granted, the one she wielded so arrogantly, was about to fall into Naomi's hands. Naomi felt the subtle buzz of power ripple through her as she hung up the phone, her resolve set. She had been humiliated, but not for long. With the press of a button, she could begin unraveling the threads of the Vale dynasty, one by one. All she needed was a seat at the table. "I'm going to own it all, Clarissa," Naomi said, her voice firm and sure. The words hung in the air, cutting through the chatter. Clarissa's smirk faltered for a second, but she quickly recovered, dismissing Naomi with a wave of her hand. Naomi knew that look, the look of someone who thought they had the power. But Naomi had learned a long time ago that power wasn't just about what you owned, it was about what you could take when no one was looking. As she made her way toward the exit, Naomi's presence felt like a force in the room, a storm gathering its strength. Clarissa and her guests may have thought they had won, but Naomi knew the real game was only just beginning. With each step she took, she could feel the weight of the decision she had made. This wasn't just about a corporate buyout. It was about taking back her space, her identity, and proving once and for all that no one could erase her. No one could rewrite the rules but her. Naomi stepped out of the gala, her heels clicking sharply on the polished marble floor, each step a quiet declaration of intent. The cool night air hit her face as she made her way to the waiting car, her mind already racing with the decisions she had just set into motion. She knew she couldn't walk away now, not after everything that had happened. Clarissa's words, those words that had been meant to humiliate her, were still ringing in her ears. But Naomi wasn't interested in revenge, not in the way people expected. She was far beyond petty insults or public displays. What she had planned was much bigger, much more powerful. Naomi's eyes flickered to the skyline, her mind shifting gears. Her empire was vast, but it was more than just wealth and power, it was about control. And Clarissa Vale had just made the mistake of believing she was untouchable. As Naomi settled into the backseat of the car, her phone buzzed in her hand. It was Carla. "It's done." Carla's voice came through clear and steady, the same tone she had when they were closing billion-dollar deals. "I've secured the options, started the acquisition process, and we've already begun reaching out to the stakeholders. It won't be long now." Naomi's lips curled into a small, satisfied smile. "Good," she replied, her voice measured. "We move quickly. By morning, this will be over." She looked out of the window as the city lights blurred past, each one a reminder of how quickly everything could change when you had the right leverage. The Vale dynasty, once untouchable, was now on the verge of falling. Naomi had done her homework. She knew every weakness, every connection, every secret buried beneath the surface. This wasn't just about buying an empire, it was about buying control over the narrative, forcing Clarissa and her family to confront the very system they had used to keep others down. Naomi knew how this game worked. She had played it her entire life, watched the wealthy use their influence to shut people like her out, to remind her that she didn't belong. But Naomi had learned the hard way that power didn't come from fitting in, it came from standing out, from making people question everything they thought they knew. And now, it was her turn. As the car made its way through the city, Naomi allowed herself a brief moment to reflect on how far she had come. She had always known this day would come, the day when she would no longer let anyone define her worth or her place in the world. Clarissa had crossed a line tonight, but that wasn't the only reason Naomi was acting now. She had been preparing for this moment her entire life. And with one final move, she was going to make sure no one ever underestimated her again. The car pulled to a stop in front of the Blackwell building, the headquarters of her empire, and Naomi stepped out, her posture straight, her eyes sharp. The takeover had begun. There would be no turning back for the Vale family. Naomi had already written the final chapter of their story, and it was one they would never see coming. The following morning, Naomi sat at her desk, overlooking the city skyline from the penthouse office she had built from the ground up. The sunlight filtered through the glass walls, casting long shadows across the polished floors. And yet, Naomi felt no warmth from the rays. Instead, she felt the cool edge of control, the quiet assurance of knowing that, soon, everything would change. Her phone buzzed on the desk, the screen lighting up with an incoming call from Carla. Naomi picked it up without hesitation. "It's done," Carla's voice said, calm as always, but Naomi could hear the hint of excitement in it. "All stakeholders have been informed. The board meeting is scheduled for this afternoon. Clarissa is already on edge. She's been calling all morning, trying to figure out what's happening." Naomi leaned back in her chair, folding her arms as she processed the information. The storm she had been quietly preparing for had finally arrived, and it was exactly as she had anticipated. "Good," Naomi replied, her voice low but firm. "I want everything in place by noon. When we move fast." The plan was set, the pieces in motion. Clarissa Vale and her family had no idea what was coming for them. Naomi wasn't about to allow them to dictate the terms any longer. The dynasty that had once thought they were untouchable would now be at her mercy. Naomi's mind raced with the details, every move carefully calculated, every piece of leverage expertly placed. This wasn't about business anymore. This was about making a statement. Naomi wasn't just taking over a company. She was reclaiming her power, asserting her right to be seen, to be heard, and to be respected. She had spent years building her empire, and now, after years of being told she didn't belong, she would show the world exactly how wrong they were. "Make sure the press release is ready," Naomi continued, her voice sharp and decisive. "We don't need to wait for their response. Let the world know who's in charge. This is not just business, Carla. This is war." She hung up, her eyes never leaving the skyline. Naomi had learned the hard way that in order to succeed, she had to be relentless, had to keep pushing, keep moving forward, no matter who stood in her way. And now, as the morning light streamed across her desk, Naomi knew that this was the beginning of the end for the Vale family. The moment they had crossed her was the moment they had sealed their fate. Naomi stood up from her desk and walked to the window, looking down at the city below. She could almost feel the shift in the air, like the calm before a storm, but this time, it was her storm. The Blackwell Empire was about to expand, and Naomi would make sure it wasn't just a takeover, it was going to be a transformation. And Clarissa Vale? She would soon learn the hard way that no one, no matter how rich or powerful, was ever truly untouchable. Naomi's grip on the future was stronger than ever before. The press conference was set for 3 p.m. sharp, and Naomi stood in front of the full-length mirror in her office, adjusting the sleeves of her black blazer. The reflection staring back at her was not the same woman who had walked into that gala the night before, humiliated and dismissed. No, this woman was a force. Her posture was solid, her expression one of calm confidence, a sharp contrast to the storm swirling inside her. Today was the day Naomi would reclaim not just her company, but her dignity, her power, her place in a world that had been built to exclude her. Naomi turned away from the mirror and picked up the phone on her desk, dialing Carla's number. "Everything ready?" she asked, her voice cool and precise. "Yes, ma'am," Carla replied immediately. "The board's ready to vote. We have all the necessary documents, and the press release has been sent to the major outlets. Clarissa is completely unaware of what's about to happen." Naomi smiled, though it wasn't a smile of joy. It was a smile of strategy. "Good. We don't give her time to fight back. Let's move fast and hit them hard." She hung up the phone and walked out of her office, the click of her heels echoing down the hallway, signaling to everyone around her that this was not just another day at the office. This was the beginning of a new era. The press room was filled with reporters, cameras set up and lights pointed directly at Naomi, but it was the atmosphere that had shifted. Gone were the whispers of doubt, replaced now by an almost tangible anticipation. Naomi stood at the podium, waiting for the chaos to settle, her eyes scanning the room. Every face in that crowd had been conditioned to think they knew who Naomi Blackwell was, to believe they understood her, but they were wrong. Today, she would show them the truth. "Ladies and gentlemen," Naomi began, her voice steady and commanding, "thank you for joining me today. I know there are many questions swirling about my intentions, my actions, and the recent events surrounding my business. Allow me to make this clear. Naomi paused, letting her words hang in the air for a moment. What happened last night at the gala was not an isolated incident. It was not a misunderstanding. It was the culmination of years of exclusion, of being underestimated, and being judged by a system that's been broken from the very start. Last night, I was humiliated. But today, I am here to show you exactly why that will never happen again. I am not here to ask for permission. I am here to take what is rightfully mine. I have acquired the Vale family's empire, every last share, every building, every contract. And I'm not done. The reporters shifted in their seats, the shock palpable in the room. Naomi felt the power shift beneath her feet as the room, which had once belonged to the elite, now seemed to belong to her. Clarissa Vale may have built a kingdom on lies and privilege, but it will no longer stand. I will ensure that every single person who helped build that empire is held accountable. No more silence. No more ignoring those who matter. This is the beginning of a new era, one where the rules of power are rewritten. And let me make one thing clear. This is only the beginning. Naomi's words hung in the air like a challenge, the room buzzing with whispers, questions, and disbelief. The cameras flashed as reporters scrambled to capture every word. But Naomi stood tall, unwavering, her eyes locked onto the future. She had taken back control, and now, the world would watch as she transformed it. The press conference ended in a flurry of questions, but Naomi didn't wait for answers. She had already moved on to the next step in her plan. Her empire was expanding, and no one was going to stop her. The following morning, Naomi woke up to the hum of the city that never quite slept. But for the first time in years, she felt the weight of every decision she had made. The press conference had gone as planned. The press had been left in a frenzy, and the word of Naomi's takeover was already spreading like wildfire across media outlets. Clarissa Vale, once the queen of the Vale dynasty, was now a figure of pity and uncertainty. Naomi's first victory had been public, but now it was time to take the next step. She walked into her office, the walls lined with sleek, modern designs, reflecting the empire she had spent years building. The city view stretched out before her like an open canvas, each building now a symbol of the power she commanded. She glanced at the clock. It was almost noon. Carla would be calling soon with the latest update. Sure enough, Naomi's phone buzzed, the call lighting up the screen with Carla's name. "It's all in motion," Carla said, her voice confident as always. "The Vale family is scrambling. Clarissa's meeting with her board right now, but there's panic in the air. We've secured key allies within the company, and they're already backing our move. The acquisition is a done deal." Naomi allowed herself a brief smile. "Perfect," she said, her voice calm but filled with a quiet intensity. "Keep pushing. We need to finish this today. I want them to know we're in charge." As she ended the call, Naomi's eyes flickered to the framed photograph on her desk, the image of her late mother, the woman who had taught her the true meaning of resilience. Naomi's mother had never been given a seat at the table of power, and Naomi had watched for years as the doors slammed shut in her face, but she had never stopped fighting. And now, Naomi was on the other side of that door, breaking down every barrier that had kept women like her from reaching the top. Naomi rose from her desk and walked over to the window, staring down at the busy streets below. The takeover had been swift, but it was only a small part of a much bigger plan. She wasn't just here to dismantle the Vale Empire, she was here to build something new, something that would stand as a monument to those who had been overlooked and silenced for far too long. She had the resources, the influence, and now, the support to rewrite the rules of the game. It was time to show the world just how far Naomi Blackwell could go. A sharp knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. "Come in," Naomi called. The door opened, and Carla walked in, her expression as serious as ever. "Naomi," she began, "Clarissa has just issued a public statement. She's claiming the takeover is illegal, that it's a hostile acquisition, and that we're abusing our power." Naomi raised an eyebrow, a small, amused smile, tugging at the corner of her lips. Let them all talk. They don't understand that this isn't about legality. This is about power. I've played by their rules for far too long. Now, I'm writing my own." Naomi's words were sharp, unwavering. Carla nodded, understanding exactly what Naomi meant. "We'll handle the backlash. I'll start preparing a response." But it's clear Clarissa is desperate. Naomi turned back to the window, her gaze steady and unflinching. Let her be desperate. The more they push, the more they reveal their weakness. This is the moment we've been waiting for. The moment the world sees who's really in charge. With one last glance at the city, Naomi turned toward her desk, the weight of what she was about to do settling in. She was no longer playing the game, she was changing it. And the Vale family would learn that the true cost of power was never in money, it was in the price you paid to keep it. Naomi had no intention of paying that price. She was about to collect it. And the world would watch as she took everything that belonged to her. Naomi's office was now a whirlwind of activity. Outside, the city continued its usual rhythm, unaware of the seismic shift that was unfolding in the business world. Inside, however, everything had changed. The air was thick with anticipation, a quiet storm ready to explode. Naomi sat behind her desk, her fingers lightly tapping the surface as she glanced over the latest legal documents. Clarissa Vale's public statement had gone live, accusing Naomi of illegal practices and attempting to sabotage the very company she had fought to control. Naomi wasn't surprised this was the final act of desperation from a family that had built their empire on privilege, not merit. She knew exactly how this game was played. She'd seen it all before. Her phone rang again, cutting through her thoughts. It was Carla. "We've got a problem." Carla's voice came through, laced with urgency. Naomi leaned forward, her tone calm but alert. "What's going on?" "The press is starting to latch onto Clarissa's statement. Some of the more conservative outlets are questioning the legitimacy of your actions. They're demanding an explanation, and it's starting to catch fire on social media. We need to act fast." Naomi's eyes narrowed as she processed the information. This was expected, but it was nothing they couldn't handle. "Prepare a response, but make sure we're in control of the narrative. No more apologies, no more defending ourselves. We show them who's really in charge." Carla's voice softened, understanding the weight of Naomi's words. Understood. Naomi hung up the phone and stood up, walking over to the window once again. The city stretched before her, alive with possibilities, and she could feel the power shift. It was as if the entire world was watching, waiting for her next move. Naomi had spent years building an empire, one decision at a time, one calculated move after another. And now, she wasn't just taking control of a company. She was taking control of the narrative. Clarissa's desperate attempts to discredit her were only making Naomi's position stronger. The world didn't care about legal technicalities. It cared about power, and Naomi had that in spades. She was not going to let anyone dictate her worth. She was going to make them respect her. As the morning passed, Naomi made her final preparations. The board meeting would take place in a few hours, and the pressure was mounting. She knew that once the acquisition was officially approved, there would be no turning back. The Vale family's grip on their empire would be broken, and Naomi would be standing at the top, a testament to everything they had tried to keep her from becoming. Carla knocked on the door, entering without waiting for an invitation. "Everything's ready. The press release is scheduled, and we've started distributing it to all key outlets." Naomi nodded, her focus unwavering. "Good. Get everyone in the conference room. It's time to take this to the next level." As she walked toward the conference room, her mind raced with the steps ahead. Naomi wasn't just building an empire, she was building a legacy. The Vale family had thought they could control everything with money and connections. But Naomi knew better. She had something they could never buy, the power to reshape the future. When Naomi entered the room, the board members were already seated, their expressions a mix of anticipation and caution. Naomi took her place at the head of the table, her presence commanding the room. She didn't need to say a word. They knew exactly what was about to happen. "We're not just here to approve an acquisition," Naomi began, her voice steady, filled with purpose. "We're here to change the game. We're here to make a statement. Today, we take everything that's rightfully ours." The room was silent, each person hanging on her every word. Naomi could feel the weight of their eyes on her, but it didn't matter. This was her moment. And as the room began to hum with approval, Naomi smiled to herself. She had already won. The meeting room was quiet, the air thick with anticipation as Naomi stood before the board. The approval had gone through, and the acquisition was now final. The Vale Empire, once a symbol of unchecked wealth and privilege, had officially become Naomi Blackwell's. She could feel the shift in the room, the underlying tension, as the board members adjusted to the reality of their new leader. Naomi was in control now, and nothing could change that. As the final signatures were handed over, Naomi allowed herself a brief moment to absorb the weight of what had just happened. She had done it. She had not just taken over a company, she had reclaimed her space, her power, and her future. The world had underestimated her, but now they would have no choice but to watch as she reshaped the very rules of the game. The deal was done, but this was only the beginning. Naomi wasn't just interested in the financial side of things. She had bigger plans, a vision that stretched far beyond this takeover. She was going to build something new, something that would stand as a beacon of what true power could look like in the hands of someone who had been forced to fight for it every step of the way. As the board members filed out, Naomi took a deep breath, her mind already moving to the next step. It wasn't enough to own the Vale legacy, she needed to change it, make it something that would last. She needed to send a message, not just to Clarissa Vale, but to everyone who had ever tried to tear her down. Naomi pulled up her phone and dialed Carla once more. "Get the team ready. We're announcing the restructure tomorrow. I want the press release to go out first thing." "Understood," Carla replied, her voice efficient. "I'll have it ready. Anything else?" Naomi paused for a moment, her thoughts racing. "Yes," she said, her voice steady and final. "I want a new foundation. A new vision for this company. One that's about more than just wealth. It's about impact. It's about making sure no one has to fight as hard as I did to get here." There was a brief silence on the line, then Carla's voice came through, clear with respect. "You've got it, Naomi. We'll make it happen." Naomi hung up the phone, looking out over the city once again. This time, it felt different. The view wasn't just of a city full of opportunity, it was a city that now belonged to her. Every corner, every high-rise, every business that had once belonged to someone else was now under her influence, and she was just getting started. The Vale family had been in charge for decades, but Naomi knew that their grip on the world they had built was weak. All it took was one powerful move, and the world changed. Naomi stood tall, a quiet smile playing at the corners of her lips. She had made her mark, and now it was time to build her legacy. The Vale family would never know what hit them. As Naomi turned to leave her office, the building that had once felt like just another corporate structure now seemed like her kingdom. The next phase of her plan was already unfolding, and she wasn't about to waste any more time. Naomi Blackwell was no longer just a CEO, she was a force, and the world would have to reckon with her, whether they liked it or not. As Naomi sat in her new office, the weight of her recent victories settled in, but so did the understanding that her journey was far from over. The takeover was complete, and her new role as the leader of the Vale dynasty felt surreal. Naomi had taken everything, every asset, every connection, and now she was the one pulling the strings. But the truth was, this was just the foundation. The empire she had built was a testament to her resilience, but it was now time to build something more, something greater. Naomi knew that taking over a company wasn't just about ownership, it was about redefining everything it stood for. The Vale legacy had been built on secrecy, favoritism, and exclusion, and Naomi was going to change that. She wasn't going to simply inherit their world. She was going to make it hers, on her terms. She stood up, looking out of the window at the skyline. The city was hers, and soon, the corporate world would belong to her as well. Naomi had learned how to play this game from the bottom, working her way up when no one thought she had a chance, and now she was at the top, poised to change the system that had once kept her out. She reached for her phone, dialing Carla once again. "Carla, I need you to prepare a meeting for tomorrow. I want to speak with all the department heads and senior management. It's time to roll out the changes." Carla's voice came through the line, steady and ready for action. "Got it, Naomi. We'll be prepared. Do you want to announce the restructure tomorrow as well?" Naomi thought for a moment. "Yes, but not just the restructure. I want a statement about what we stand for now. The Vale legacy is over, It's time to create something new. A company that empowers, that reflects the world as it should be, not the world it was. Carla paused, but Naomi could hear the understanding in her tone. Understood. I'll get everything in place. As Naomi ended the call, she felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She wasn't just leading a company now. She was shaping an entire industry. This was her moment to prove that power wasn't just for the privileged few, it was for anyone willing to fight for it. Naomi's thoughts turned to Clarissa, to the people who had tried to silence her and dismiss her for so long. They had underestimated her, thinking that their wealth and status could shield them from the consequences of their actions. But Naomi wasn't interested in revenge. She was interested in change, in setting a new standard. Tomorrow, she would stand in front of her team and tell them exactly what this company would become. It wasn't going to be a place where people were judged by the color of their skin or their gender or their class. It was going to be a place where everyone, no matter their background, had a chance to succeed. Naomi had fought for everything she had, and now she was going to fight for everyone else who had been left behind. The Vale family had built their empire on the backs of others, but Naomi was going to build hers from the ground up, with a foundation of fairness and opportunity. She wasn't just here to take what belonged to her. She was here to take back the narrative, to rewrite the story for those who had been erased from it. The future was in her hands, and Naomi wasn't going to let it slip away. She turned back to the window, her gaze firm and unwavering. The empire she was about to create would be built on something stronger than wealth. It would be built on justice, on truth, and on the undeniable power of those who refused to be silenced. The following morning, Naomi walked into the boardroom with a sense of calm power that had become second nature. Her team was already in place, seated around the sleek conference table, waiting for her. The room buzzed with a quiet anticipation as Naomi stood at the head, her gaze sweeping over the group. She could feel the weight of what she was about to say settle into the air, but there was no hesitation in her steps. Today, everything changed. "Good morning, everyone," Naomi began, her voice steady, cutting through the hum of whispered conversation. "Today is a turning point for this company, for all of us. We have taken control of what was once the Vale Empire, but now we have to do something far more important. We need to transform it." The room grew silent, each individual hanging on Naomi's words, recognizing the gravity of the moment. "We are no longer just inheriting a legacy, we are creating one. A new legacy, built on principles of fairness, equality, and opportunity. I didn't fight my way to the top just to repeat the same old system that has kept too many people down for too long." Naomi's eyes sharpened as she looked around the room. She could see the fear in some of their faces, the uncertainty of what this transformation would mean. But there was also something else: hope. Hope that they could build something better, something more inclusive. The old guard, Naomi continued, thought their wealth and influence would protect them. They thought they could keep others out and build their empire on exclusion and secrecy. But that time is over. The Vale family is done. We are not going to build our empire on the backs of others. We are going to build it on the belief that everyone deserves a chance, regardless of where they come from, what they look like, or what they've been through. She paused, letting her words sink in, the tension in the room palpable. "I'm not here to make the same mistakes. I'm here to set new standards, to push this company to be a leader in innovation, equality, and social responsibility. We are going to redefine what success looks like in this industry." Naomi could feel the room shift. Some were still unsure, others were on board, but there was a common understanding that things would never be the same again. "The first thing we're going to do," Naomi said, "is launch a diversity and inclusion initiative that will be the benchmark for this industry. It will not be optional. Everyone, from the top down, will be held accountable. Our goal is to create a company where every voice is heard, where every person is given an equal opportunity to succeed." The room remained silent, but Naomi could feel the weight of her words taking root. This wasn't just a business decision, it was a statement, a declaration of who she was and what she stood for. "We are going to invest in communities that have been overlooked, and we are going to create a pipeline of opportunities for people who have been systematically excluded. We will be known not just for our profits, but for the impact we make in the world." Naomi's voice hardened, her resolve unwavering. "If anyone is not on board with this vision, Now is the time to speak up. This company is no longer a place for those who want to maintain the status quo. This is a place for those who want to change the world. Naomi stood tall, the room now completely still, every person in it understanding the significance of this moment. She had not just taken control of a company. She was taking control of the narrative, and she was rewriting it. As she looked around the table, Naomi knew this was only the beginning. The world would watch as she built something new, something that would stand as a testament to what could happen when someone refused to be silenced. When someone fought for what was right, no matter the cost. The room erupted into applause, some of it tentative, but Naomi didn't flinch. She had made her decision. She was going to change everything. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, press conferences, and strategic plans being rolled out. Naomi moved with the precision of someone who had been preparing for this moment her entire life. The restructuring was underway, and the foundation of her new empire was taking shape. But as the days passed, Naomi's thoughts continued to return to the moment she had taken control of the Vale dynasty, and the inevitable pushback that was coming. Clarissa Vale, no longer the face of the empire, had retreated into the shadows, but Naomi knew it wouldn't be long before she tried to reclaim what was lost. Naomi wasn't naive. She knew that people like Clarissa, people who had built their lives on privilege and entitlement, didn't give up easily. And so, Naomi braced herself for the next battle. The company was transitioning, but Naomi was not just concerned with the financial shift. She was more focused on the cultural shift. She was rebuilding the entire system, from the ground up. There were skeptics, of course. The board was divided, with some of the older members uncomfortable with the changes Naomi was making. They had grown comfortable with the way things had always been done, with their power and influence unchecked. But Naomi wasn't interested in comfort. She was interested in revolution. She was interested in justice. And for Naomi, there was no room for anything less. Naomi sat in her office late one evening, reviewing documents and finalizing plans for the next round of announcements. Her phone buzzed, and she glanced down to see Carla's name on the screen. "What's going on?" Naomi asked, her voice calm, but expectant. "Clarissa's made a move," Carla said, her tone serious. "She's been in talks with the media, and she's starting to gather support from some of the old guard. There's talk of trying to fight back, to contest the legitimacy of the acquisition in court." Naomi leaned back in her chair, staring out at the city below. This was the moment she had anticipated. Clarissa wasn't going to take her defeat lying down. "Let her," Naomi said, her voice firm and resolute. "Let her gather her supporters. It won't matter. We've already won." Carla paused for a moment, sensing Naomi's confidence. "I'll make sure we're prepared for whatever comes next," she said. "We'll respond in kind." Naomi smiled, a sharp, knowing smile. "We won't just respond. We'll crush them with the truth." As she hung up the phone, Naomi's mind turned to her next move. She wasn't going to wait for the Vale family to strike. She would take the initiative, push forward, and ensure that there was no turning back. Naomi had never been one to sit back and let things happen. She had made this happen. She had fought for everything she had earned. And now, she was going to make sure the world knew exactly who she was. The Vale family had built their empire on lies and deception. But Naomi wasn't just here to take over. It was time to expose everything. To show the world how they had operated in the shadows for so long. How they had built their wealth by stepping on others. By shutting out those who deserved a seat at the table. The media would have no choice but to listen when Naomi told her story. She would rewrite the narrative, control the conversation, and ensure that the Vale legacy was buried once and for all. She wasn't just taking over the company, she was taking back the truth. And Naomi wasn't going to stop until everyone knew her name, knew her story, and understood the cost of underestimating her. The following weeks proved to be the beginning of Naomi's most crucial phase. The media blitz had started. The board members were still adjusting to the shifts she was implementing, and Clarissa Vale, along with the old guard, was doing everything they could to resist. But Naomi had anticipated this. She knew the price of power and the resistance that would come with it. Clarissa's public attacks were becoming more frequent, each attempt to undermine Naomi only solidifying her resolve. Naomi didn't flinch, though. She didn't have time for fear. She had already charted the course, and there was no going back. One evening, Naomi sat in her office, the skyline of the city stretching out before her like a constant reminder of the distance she had come. She looked at the latest report from Carla, her assistant and trusted ally. Clarissa's lawyers were moving forward with a lawsuit to challenge the legitimacy of Naomi's takeover. The press had already started to echo their claims, giving the Vale family's narrative a platform. Naomi knew that the only way to stop them from gaining any more ground was to control the narrative herself. She reached for the phone on her desk, her fingers moving quickly to dial Carla. "Get me the media team," she said, her voice clear and calm, though there was an undeniable sense of purpose behind it. "It's time we shut this down once and for all." Within minutes, Carla had connected Naomi with her media team. Naomi quickly briefed them on her plans. "I want a live press conference, and I want it to go out today. We're going to expose the Vale family for what they are, and show the world exactly what this takeover means. This isn't just a business deal. This is about bringing truth to light." The media team responded with determination, agreeing to move forward with Naomi's plan. It wasn't going to be easy, but Naomi was used to fighting for what was rightfully hers. She wasn't about to let Clarissa's desperation dictate the terms of the game. By the time the press conference started a few hours later, Naomi had already set the tone. Her message was clear, her words calculated for maximum impact. "Ladies and gentlemen," Naomi began, her voice steady but piercing. "What we are witnessing here is not just a business takeover. This is the exposure of a legacy built on exclusion, on power that was abused, and on lies that went unchecked for far too long. Clarissa Vale and her family have spent years hiding behind their wealth, using it to manipulate the system, to shut out anyone who didn't look like them, think like them, or act like them, but no more." Naomi's gaze swept across the room, the media cameras flashing, and the reporters leaning forward, eager for her every word. "I am not here to tear down a company. I'm here to rebuild it, to create something that will be defined by opportunity, fairness, and justice. The Vale family has had their chance to control the narrative, to control the power. Now, it's my turn." Naomi paused, letting her words sink in. The room fell into a tense silence, as the weight of what she was saying settled over everyone present. "I won't let this company be built on exclusion any longer," she continued, her voice firm. "We are going to move forward with a vision that includes everyone, no matter their race, their gender, or their background. This is not just about profits. This is about creating a legacy that will stand for what is right. And for anyone who stands in our way, let this be the last time you underestimate me." Naomi's final words hung in the air, cutting through the tension like a blade. As the press conference ended, Naomi turned away from the cameras, her mind already focused on the next steps. She had won the battle for the narrative, but the war was far from over. The Vale family would continue to fight, but Naomi was prepared. She had taken control of their empire, but it was her empire now, and she wasn't going to let anyone take it from her. The world had seen what Naomi Blackwell was capable of, and there was no turning back now.